So could you kind of tell us a bit about your inspirations for the curiosity approach and which kind of philosophies or approaches that kind of inspired you?
Yeah, shall I start, Steph?
Yeah, you go for it.
So combined, Steph and I have been in early childhood for, oh, have I frozen? Sorry.
No, you're right.
Combined, Steph and I have been in early childhood for 50-something years, completely different careers. I was a primary school teacher, and Steph will tell you her, but between the two of us, we feel like we've covered most positions in early childhood. And then getting on for 5 years ago, we joined a day nursery owners mastermind group to look at, you know, your business as a private nursery, and there was never anything like that before. So Steph and I are always looking for new things, and we joined. We didn't know each other at all, and cut a long story short, in that year Steph opened what is we call her second site now, and I went along with my husband and my family. I have 4 nurseries in Birmingham in the middle of England, and Steph has her too. So my nurseries are mine and my husband's, like similar to you guys. We work together in that capacity. And so we went along to visit Stephanie's nursery, and that's when we realised like how similar that we were. And basically from that point on, our group kept saying you need to work together. So we did. We got together. Well, we went for the day in January 2017 to kind of brain dump what was in our heads and what we could offer, because way back in many years ago, you know, especially in my early days of my career, I was very fortunate as a teacher to go to Reggio in my second year of teaching and stuff. So things really shaped me. And what we call local authorities, so Birmingham, it felt like there was a lot of money invested in training, and we could go on so many different things. And then in recent times, as I'm sure in many places, all of those things got cut and taken away. Mm-hmm. So we went to just go and talk about putting on training. And then it kind of led to unpicking what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it and our style. And again, cut another long story short, this is where we would say at that point in time, we would have said we were mostly Reggio inspired, and our nurseries were based on that. However, the more we spoke, the more we kind of just discussed and then we're true to ourselves and to Reggio, and we know that you can't really be Reggio unless you're in Reggio Emilia, you know, because of the whole involvement from what would their local authority be, the municipality of Reggio Emilia, yeah. And so we realised, and then we spoke about, you know, other things that inspire our pedagogy. And I had Steiner trained teachers too. You know, just Stephanie's been to New Zealand and, you know, discovered firsthand their curriculum of Te Whareiti. And so we spoke about all of those things. So we said we can't actually say that we're Reggio inspired, because we're not just Reggio inspired, and there's elements of Reggio that we don't carry on in our settings. We very much work in the moment with our children rather than long-term developed projects, etc. If there was a project, then that's fine. The children would continue it on, but it's not. We work very much with the children in that moment that they're in. And then underpinning all of those things, we wanted, with curiosity, you know, that's how we learn. We're all curious beings as humans. But we wanted to give our training at that point a name that everybody could understand, because not parents don't know what Reggio, what's Reggio inspired, what is Reggio, you know, what's Steiner, is that they don't know necessarily that's a person, and all of those things where universally everybody understands what curiosity is, because it's something that we feel every single day. And so we gave it a name, and then we just decided we would start out by sharing our practice on a Facebook group, and then it went crazy, and then I'll let Steph carry on.
So we went we started the Facebook group, as Lindsay said, sharing, and together over our careers, we had noticed the difference not just in educators, in the training that was out there for them. As Lindsay says, she was educated, trained as a teacher. I did what was called an NNEB, and that was a really intense practitioner's course, and it really went into depth about child development. And it was a 2-year course. You had to have an interview, and if you ask anybody about the NNEB course, it has held in such high regard as a quality training platform for educators. And that was disbanded, and then the MVQs all came on board, and all those things. And over time, we felt that the training that is out there isn't of as such quality as it used to be, and there is a lot of younger staff coming in as apprentices, so the quality of education that they're getting depends on the quality within the setting itself. You know, it's all hands-on, so unless they're getting time or have great role models, then you haven't got that standard of quality and knowledge embedded in there. And I think that's what we were finding was missing. And also millennials, that knowledge, that common sense about life skills and all those things. And as Lindsay said, the money just wasn't there for training. So we'd noticed a difference in the educators coming through into our nursery, early years, childhood settings, but also very much so about the children, the big difference in our children that were coming through our settings. I've been doing this for 30 years. You know, I did my child nursery nurse, and then I went and became a nanny abroad. So that was one of my jobs. I went to London, Canada, Australia, America, went all over and lived in-house. And then when I moved to Leicester, I became a day nursery deputy, and then that was called an officer in charge. I've been a childminder, and then I opened what were called play groups, preschools, just little 3-hour sessions, and then I've gone on to full daycare. So over that career, I've seen children 30 years ago to how they are now, and the change in their childhood has had a huge impact. And although it's kind of been drip fed, it has had an impact, and that's through sedentary lifestyles, technology. Only in the last 9 to 10 years, the invention of the iPad, you know, that rewiring of the brain, family life, you know, the core family unit, children not getting outside as much as they used to because there's more traffic. There's a huge amount of research on how children's childhoods are changing and the impact that is having on them. We're noticing children coming into our settings who don't even know how to play. You know, they've been zoned out, tunnel vision in front of the TV screen. And we've also got the introduction of plastic toys. Now, plastic toys, when I started my settings were full of plastic toys, absolutely full of them. But the difference is, back then, the children also got out to play. The children didn't have technology like they do now. So what has happened now, the scales have been tipped, and we've got to put something back in. We've got to reverse and start to rescue play, because there is a play deprivation. And only yesterday I put on a post about how we use authentic role play, dramatic play, outfits and items, because the children are also living in a commercialized, materialistic world where everything is through advertisement, and so we step away from those Disney outfits. That's not to say that children who come into our settings can't have, of course they have. And I put a comment, if you can't wear a superhero outfit or a Disney outfit when you're little, when can you? But in our settings, we give them the freedom and the autonomy to dress beyond a princess or a superhero and allow them that freedom. So there's all those differences. The academics is being pushed down younger and younger onto our children. And you will have seen the baby gyms that are, when you put a baby on the floor and they're kicking something above them, they've got numbers and counting and colours on. Babies don't need all that. We're really inspired by Emmy Pickler as well, and and Steiner, the natural unfolding of a child. So it's all those things. These are why that Lindsay and I really unpicked who we are, and it is about our why we're doing it, and who is it for.
And we just wanted to put nothing that we are delivering is new, because it's been inspired from pioneers of long ago, Rudolf Steiner, Maria Montessori, Loris Malaguzzi. None of this is new, Emmy Pickler. But the difference was we wanted to put a modern take on it, and because exactly what Stephanie said, but we also know that our children's adulthoods are going to be so different to what we're experiencing now, and our lives now are so different to just 10-15 years ago without the introduction of technology. So you imagine when we're fully in an automated world, the human interaction, the skills that make us different to the robots, need to be embedded in the early years. The most fundamental years of a human's life for brain development is happening to the children that we're serving, and so it's so important we get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Mickey's a big fan of Piccolo, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reading one of their books, the infant toddler, can't remember the full name.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's good to introduce parents, like lots of these, like Reggio Emilia, Steiner, and Pickler too. It's better to help them to understand how children develop, why they need play. Because
and
parents and some educators, difficult for them to adapt play, and they still think that children learn best from adults, but not playing by themselves.
Yeah, and parents want the best for their children, and they think that they want to help them get ahead. And sadly, the misconception is that by getting ahead and that faster is better, but we can't leapfrog over all those stages of child development, because at the end of the day, faster isn't better, and we've got to lay down those foundations along the way to give children the holistic skill set, and communication, empathy, problem solving, conflict resolution, all those things are so very important that
One, I'm going to say the word wrong, so forgive me if I say it wrong. The Hygge.
Yeah.
Oh,
don't
you worry. We always say. I think we say
past
it different
year,
every
I've called it
time.
Haig. So
we just say our own word too. We know exactly what you mean.
yeah, could you explain what it is? It's creeping into China now, that word. We know it's from Denmark, I think. Can you tell us a bit more about what it means and what it means in the curiosity approach?
Well, it comes from Scandinavia. It's a term that isn't translatable in English, but it's the best way to describe it is that feeling of contentment that you have when you're in a certain situation or a certain emotion that you feel of, coziness, or, you just, that in your gut, that feeling of just, that we can't, there's no word for in English, that feeling. That is Hygge in Scandinavia. And, we, again, it's just been something that's been there. We didn't know there was a word for it until the last few years, really. That it's that whole, for us, it's thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the pyramid, and the blocks that have to sit at the bottom of the pyramid for the rest of it to happen, and the blocks of love and warmth and safety and all of those needs that are necessary for our children. And when they're there, then the learning comes. But if we send our babies, you know, our really tiny children, which we have 0 to 4 year olds, and they are to us babies, not in a that they can't do things. They're very capable, but their brains are so underdeveloped that to send them into an institutionalized setting that's been designed for older children is just fundamentally wrong. And so we want to create, and our saying is that our settings are an extension of our child's home and not a watered down version of school. Our children aren't 7-year-olds, our children aren't 8-year-olds, so why make them be in an environment for that? You know, and we would look to Scandinavia and countries in Europe who do not send their children to school until they're 7 and really focus on that play-based home nurturing, and, you know, in their lives for that period of time. We would look to those for inspiration. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen in England. We send our children at the age of 4 to school. So, you know, maybe we hope that the pandemic has allowed for greater reflection, you know, because our education system was designed for the Industrial Revolution and things have changed so massively. So anyway, back to Hugo, sorry.
Yeah. It's about, as Lindsay said, it's that feeling within your early childhood setting, from a physical point of view, but also the atmosphere that is there. So from the educators, the members of staff, it's about those connections, those relationships. And what we say is, you know, children feel our vibe, our energy, before they even hear our words. So it's a whole culture encompassed in the curiosity approach, and children are at the centre of everything we do. So it's even though we use the word hygge, it's embedded, and it resonates through Steiner as well, that reverence and respect, and Tefariki, that reverence and respect for the children that we serve. And that's what we say, we have to give 100% to them, and they are at the centre of everything we do, and it's a heart-centred approach. And so the educators that come into our settings to work are there to serve the children that we care for. And it's that whole feeling. You can have the most beautiful play spaces, but if the adults within it aren't happy and focused for these children, then there's no point having the most beautiful setting. So it's about that culture of the team within.
Yeah.
And how we would bring families into our setting, because the relationship side of it is so important, which is, you know, one of the big strands of Tefariki. You know, it's in the YFS in England too, but how you make a family feel when they first come in, because you know, for the majority of parents, they're handing over to you their most precious thing in the world for a stranger to take care of, which is, when you think of it in that way, it's just bizarre that we would do, but that's what we have to do. And so to build up those relationships and how a family feels, so we, you know, the child will take the lead from the cues from their parents or their carers, because they, you know, I will always say to my staff when they're inducting a new family or when we're revisiting these things, that we know why they're coming to us and their parents know why they're coming, but the child is, and especially for a baby, suddenly I'm in this alien world that I don't know about, and who are these people, and suddenly, you know, my main caregivers are not here for long periods of the day. And so how we build up to a child really starting with us is absolutely crucial, and that's where Huga and relationships really is fundamental.
I think when you look on your Facebook page or your website, the thing that pops out the most is the transformation of your environment. from before and after, and we get lots of questions on our WeChat channel saying, oh, how do we change the environment? Media is becoming very big in China now. More people are looking at the environment as a third teacher. So I'm going to talk about your environments and how you change them and why. I think a big word on your website is authentic.
Yeah. So it first has to come from, it has to start with the why. It can't, just like for children, for the educators, it can't be a do-to. They've all got to be fully on board with making those changes and understand the why we are doing it. Why are we moving from plastic bright colours? Do they understand it? If they don't, they'll go along with it for a little bit, but it won't be maintained because they don't understand the impact and the importance of it. So that's a crucial part in there. And then it's a journey. It can't happen overnight, because at the end of the day, this is the children's play space. And by just stripping the environment, we've spent so long settling these children into the environment that when they walk back in, again, it's all alien to them and it's not their same space. So they have to be part of the journey as well. It also has to be led by them, by their interests. My nurseries, I've got two, are very different to Lindsay's nurseries. That's because of the educators and the children that are within those play spaces. Because my staff are different to Lindsay's staff. My children are different to Lindsay's children, and their interests are different as well. So it has to represent the children that we're looking after. And then it's about starting to introduce those loose parts, open-ended resources, recycled materials. But the team and the educators have to also, because this can be quite alien for them, how to play with these items as well. Because for millennials, I wouldn't say we, because I'm too old for being a millennial, but millennials have everything at an instant. You can swipe everything and have a delivery, and slowly over time, creativity and imagination, it's like a muscle, isn't it? And if we don't use it, we start to lose it. So after a while, especially if we've had educators that have come into a setting that just put out some plastic toys and think it meets the EYFS, the children's development, and that ticks a box. They don't have to think anymore. It's done. I've done that bit. And so when you introduce those loose parts, open-ended resources, it's about training and educating the staff how to extend, facilitate, and take that learning further, how they can support the children, model to the children. Because if they're unsure, then they're going to get to a dead end and, well, I don't know what to do with this, or I don't know what else I can bring in. So it comes from them. So those plastic resources, it's not about just making a great big sweeping, bulldozer and clear the lot. So if you've got a plastic train track in the UK, we have, what's called Happy Land, where it's plastic farm or a house and all the plastic roadways. Start to introduce those loose parts, open-ended resources, the planks, the guttering, the drain pipe, and gradually the children will start to play with these items and discard the plastic, and the team will see, oh wow, the amazing things the children do with these items as well. And go from there.
Just if people don't know what an open-ended resource is, they're the things that are the opposite of toys, not the traditionally designed, like Stephanie's just said, the Happy Land. It's a
plastic garage.
A resource that can be anything, mostly natural resources or recycled materials like bottle tops and that type of thing that just can be used in the child's imagination and are absolutely endless with the ways that they can be used and played with. And we would fill our environments with authentic resources. So when we talk about authentic resources, the real deal, the things that are authentic,
household,
that have come from, you know, in England, as you will know, there's car boot sales, etc., and charity shops and all of those things where people throw out and donate the things from their homes they no longer want. But many of those things can be brought into our settings to introduce to the children. You know, if you think about your own childhoods and going to older member of your family's houses, grandparents and stuff, and you would tinker with things, their ornaments and their little bits and bobs. These things are new to our children. They, you know, they've not experienced them before. You know, an old telephone, putting that to them, they're just objects of curiosity to spark their imagination. But they're also, can be intelligent resources too. And that's our aim, is to make the environment that we give our children incredibly powerful. It is the third teacher, and that's the biggest part of an ingredient we would take from Reggio is the environment as the third teacher. But it's about making it so powerful that you are just the scaffolder as a practitioner. You're not there you wouldn't sit with all the children and just do the same activity. The children lead their play and they lead their own curiosity and lead their learning.
Yeah. We're in August now, and in China, you know, teachers are starting to, you know, get out the magazines to get their supplies ready for next year, and they're looking at the community helper sets and all that stuff. So what do you suggest, like talking to parents, going to boot sales?
Yeah.
And that's where you start shopping for your stuff.
Parents are if you haven't got boot sales, parents are your, you know, ideal, because we all clear out, or we've all got cupboards full of cooking utensils, pots, pans, things that we've had stored in cupboards. You know, we've all got those things. You know, if you know, garlic presses, ice cream scoops, those sorts of things are the sorts of things that we would use in our settings. So, you know, in the Play-Doh malleable play area, we would have we have potato mashers and utensils and garlic presses and those things. We moved away from the plastic cutters. We move away from sitting children in a group and do two. So this is what we're going to create now. This is what we're all going to do. You're going to follow me, the adult, and I'm going to show you. It's about the process rather than the end result and the product that the child is going to create. So it's about the experimentation, the curiosity, the investigation of what paint feels like, mixing the paint. There's some great videos from Bev Boss, you know, that show how to, that mixing and stirring, and a little child takes a bit home to, you know, extend their learning and all those things. And so everything is led from the interests of the child.
I think still a long process to persuade parents to bring in like loose parts and open-ended materials to the classroom. Because we try from last August, we tell parents about what is loose parts, what is open-ended material. So parents first thinking, oh, you mean the garbage I need to bring into school? So they're still thinking like garbage, and then it's still a very long process to let parents understand that.
It's a common, you know, a common thing that parents, because you only know what you know. So by bringing them in and then showing them, or we had a session for our parents where we had a Play-Doh making session, and you'd be surprised how many parents haven't actually made Play-Doh and, you know, from scratch. And then instead of getting the traditional cookie cutters out, the Play-Doh cookers, bring in the stuff that they can use instead, and then have that conversation, and they'll understand it more. Well, they'll be more inclined and know what you want the stuff for. Again, it goes back to the why. When people understand the why, they're more inclined to be on what we say on the bus.
Yeah, I think a good way potentially too is, you know, you could have maybe parent sessions where they you know, even if it's an evening and the children are there and you do have some loose parts and open-ended resources, and let the parents just watch their children. They will soon be engrossed with them, and they will soon be playing alongside them, because the children will lead it, because it's instinctive in us. That's part of childhood. Since humans began, we played with sticks and stones. You know, we've played with what was out there in nature. It's in our DNA. We will do it. And so we lose it as adults. We lose that sense of childness play. And so it's recapturing that, and it can be ignited again when you watch children doing it. So it might be a way to bring them in.
I remember 3 years ago maybe, I asked parents to bring in some tins and things, and the parent brought in loads of used beer cans. It still had to be, I felt like traces of beer inside have been crushed by the dad, I guess. I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, in the recycling.
Yeah. So another thing, I saw it to you guys on the news before I actually knew about the Curiosity approach, about the school with no toys. That all goes back to the loose parts as well. Another question I had was, what have you seen a difference in the children and families from before the transformation and after the transformation of the environment?
It's not, I know Steph will talk a moment because it was her nurseries that were featured on the BBC, but for us, we don't see necessarily an impact, because it's just our way and it's been like that for a long time. But it's the settings, whether they're childminders, home educators, or nurseries or schools that have started to implement the Curiosity approach. It's them that show us the impact it's made on their children, because they have made a change. Carry on, Steph. Sorry.
No, so yeah, it was my nursery that was on there, and so I was on the news because I'd opened up the nursery. And so in the area that my nursery is, there must be 20 nurseries that are around and about within walking distance. And so we were very different, because we were the nursery without toys. We didn't have the brightly coloured environments, the primary coloured walls. We were very calm, neutral, and those loose parts, open-ended, recycled materials. And like Lindsay said, we don't see the impact, although when the babies that started with me back then, to see them now, they were so capable as babies, but because they've been in an environment like that for 3 years, they are so capable now. And it's just that intrinsic desire to learn. When you have these items, there's no right and wrong way to do it. So they're just great problem solvers. They're investigating, finding out, their communication and language, their creativity. They astound us every day of all the things that they do. But the big impact is for those settings that suddenly transform. And what they say is how engaged the children are, how much longer they spend at playing. Because previously, when they used to have their plastic construction toys out, tipped on a table, the children would play for a little while, then flit off and disappear, and or they would make their own, get into behaviour. That was one of the biggest impacts they'd seen. The behaviour on the children's levels of behaviour had so improved. Their concentration, their levels of involvement, well-being. Children, it's so calm at our settings as well. That is one of the things everybody comments on, is how calm and engaged the children are, and how involved. They're all busy. If you walk around one of our settings, they are all doing something and following their own interests, and it's just a really calm, beautiful way of learning.
Do you think that's one of the reasons because of the sensory input they're getting now, where they had the plastic stuff before, it all felt the same, even if it was different colours, it all just felt the same thing. But with all these authentic poised resources, it's much more engaged on a sensory level. Like now in winter, or this is now really hot because it's been in the sun, and much more different textures.
Yeah, absolutely. As humans, we are, again, in our DNA, we have a connection with nature. It's part of us. And, you know, it's, you know, our friends in the Steiner world will talk about that connection with things that have been alive and living, which will be our natural resources, and where we don't have that same connection with manufactured plastic. You know, there's been no life there at any point. And then it's not. So absolutely, because it all does. It all feels the same, smells the same, tastes the same. Our sensory experience of the plastic toy compared to the natural toy are very different.
So how do you change the outdoor environment then? Because I walk around I live in Kent, and we've got 4 or 5 preschools around walking distance from me. They all have like the concrete outdoor playground. We might have some drawn on the floor, like a running track or a hopscotch. So how do you transform the outdoor environment?
Again, sorry, go on, Steph.
It's about looking at the space you've got. It's not just about those fixed resources. So having that fixed climbing frame that once it's up and manufactured, it's always a climbing frame. We'd have those larger loose parts. So when you have loose parts, people are under the misconception that loose parts are all the smaller items. Loose parts are as big as drain pipes, tires, great big sheets of tarpaulin, ladders, things that can be moved and transported, and the children can use them in their play. So every day the outdoor environment may be different depending on the children's ideas, their thinking and their interests.
If you were starting from scratch and you had, a tiny concrete space, it would just be exactly what Stephanie said, fill them with loose parts and the bigger loose parts, and create elements of life so that there are, planters and things that the children can see life growing there and changes and stuff. But the fact that just to have an outdoor space is way better than not. But it's making sure that, again, always going back to that why, that practitioners, any of the adults working with the children, understand the importance of our children being outside. There's a fantastic quote that we use often, that the greatest classroom is roofed only by the sky, from Margaret Macmillan, and it's so true. Just to be outside and
again, it's the educators, the practitioners, being, confident and being, up there wanting to be outside. Their enthusiasm, that they're enthusiastic about getting outside, that it's not just a 5-10 minute slot in the day and, we've got them out for a few moments. These are prolonged periods of time, and, as much as possible, that free flow from indoors to outdoors. We have so many children that are outdoor learners, and that they need that spatial awareness, getting outside, that gross opportunities for gross motor movement and skills, all those things. And when they're only getting 5-10 minutes, but it's about the staff. We call them weather warriors here in the UK because we have a lot of rain, but them being motivated, and not just standing around with their hands in the pockets, getting down and playing with the children, and being ready and prepared to play alongside with the children outside.
Seeing your space as one, yes, there is an inside and an outside space, but it should be seen as a whole environment for the child. And the more times you can allow them the choice of where they're working, the better, rather than it be, we're going outside. But I know for some spaces it can only work in that way because, it might be off-site that they have to go. But, for the majority they have, in England, we I think it's the legal stance that we would have to have an outdoor space or provide that's, you know, in a very close proximity. So just to have that as, see it as one environment for the child.
And
China's we got big outdoor spaces usually in kindergartens, and I think the law in China is that kids have to be at least 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours outside.
Yeah, where there is no law in England.
Yeah. And creating those, also creating spaces, again, going back to Hygge, going back that children have opportunity to retreat. You know, some children may need time to step away from the hustle and bustle of nursery, kindergarten life, and need a little den or space that they can sit back and have those, you know, spaces where they can just play independently or talk to friends, or, you know, and again, it's that safety and security, especially if they're new, and just then sit back and watch the world go by from there.
Mm-hmm. Questions?
I think I want to know more about the daily schedule. Do you have set time, children need to do this thing and then do that thing, or you negotiate with the children, discuss with them, okay, this time what do you want to do? Are we following the children's interest?
So we we open for mainly from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock on the evening, so 11 hours of the day, and for some children they're there from that time frame, so a long time to be with us. Our rhythms is what we would call what happens naturally through the day is mainly guided by meal times and natural bodily, you know, sleep, etc. And we don't put all our children to sleep at the same time. We let that happen naturally, so we follow the child's own individual sleep pattern, but our set times of the day are around our meal times, like they're always around that time, and that's a very clear rhythm of what happens then. But how we think about our rhythms again is an ingredient from Steiner practices. It's about breathing in and breathing out. So when you're breathing in this analogy, breathing in is when you're busy, you're in your play, you're focused, you know, your involvement levels are high, you're breathing in, and then there needs to be times in the day where you breathe out, and those times of the day are around meal times, around, you know, maybe having a story that's around going to sleep, around just those, so they're breathing out time, so we can all just breathe, reconnect, you know, and then carry on again, and then we'll breathe in and we will go again. So we don't have a 9 o'clock is this and 9:30 is this and 10 o'clock is this. There is the point of, for one of my settings, it's more difficult because we're an open plan setting. So we're more like a home in so much as that we're all together. All of the children 0 to 4 years are all in the same space together. And we don't have the luxury, it's just one big room. So we don't have the luxury of having a room where we can just set up for meals and then leave, close the door and wait for the next meal to happen. We have to pack away and put those things. So those things are built in and the children understand those times. And then our transitional times from going from a breathing in state to a breathing out state is guided by song. So we would, the children, when they start to hear the practitioner singing, then, you know, it's whether it's washing their hands or we're coming in from outside or we're doing this, is guided by song, and the children naturally know we're moving into this different period of the day. So that's how it works for us. Obviously, there are times like we close at 6 o'clock, and children will start to go home from really any time. Well, they can go home at any point when a parent collects, but it's generally from 4 o'clock onwards you start to lose children to going home, and so it calms down more. But the breathing in part of it is still happening because the environment is still open for the children to play freely. So that's what it's like in my settings anyway.
Yeah, same. So, and then another part is, so you know, those rituals, those are important parts. So those are within the day, how we do certain things. So Lindsay talked about our lunch times, our sleep times. There is a certain way that all the team know how to do things, and that connection with the children. And it's about us as adults, and we talk about at the Curiosity Approach being mindful. It's about mindful adults being conscious of those connections with children, and giving again 100% to the children.
Yeah.
So at sleep time, so when laying down a sleep nap, it wouldn't just be thrown on the floor and the sheet half, you know, tucked on. It's done with that reverence and respect for those children, and making sure that, again, those rhythms, they know what's expected, they know what's coming next. They can't tell the time, but they know that their bed is there and they've got their comforter or their blanket, and it's done with care and attention, because children feel that from us, and that connection with the adults who look after them.
A quote from Maria Montessori again that we would use regularly is that the child absorbs everything about their environment. You know, we view it, but we don't truly absorb it because it's not ours, it's theirs, and they absorb everything. And so that's why we really build into thinking about every single space in your environment, bathrooms, hallways, everywhere, to then support what Stephanie's just said, you know. So children going to sleep, it's not just thrown down. Care is given and consideration to how to make this feel for the child, you know, what this feels like. So yeah,
I think that's a very good word, the rhythm. Because often in China, when we talk about play, people think it's complete chaos. We're just letting the kids run wild. There's no structure, but there is a structure to the play, and there is like a routine, but it's a rhythm routine.
Yeah,
play is the word
is in China very structured.
Yeah.
Even lots of the international schools, like UK private schools that come over there, they say, oh, we're a very play-based holistic program. But then you see their schedules. It's 8 o'clock to 8:30 phonics, 8:30 to 9 math, and then 9 to 9:30 outside play. Then, you know, so can you tell us a bit why that much, those too many transitions are not good for the children?
Yeah, and it's all led by the adult,
yeah.
You know, and so, you know, it's that unadulterated play. You know, we know when to step back and allow them, and then we know when those play cues, and we can see that children connect with us, and we can go and step forward into their play. They're allowing us to join in, because we know that there are moments, if we're adults, and we can interrupt a child's play and they'll all disappear, you know, and you know, we've spoilt it, you know, we've tried to join in, and and they've all dashed off. And so as adults, being mindful and observing the children's play, and supporting them, facilitating, and we call those invitations and provocations to learning. So seeing what their interests are, seeing what schematic learning styles there are, and then helping to put that forward through the third teacher, and setting up the environment.
But the things we need for the different the rhythms, the meal times, etc. The children are part of that. They're very much part of the transformation of their environment into
setting up.
And that's you know, an ingredient from Montessori about the preparedness for life, not just for school, but for adulthood, and understanding, you know, my meal has come from somewhere, and there's been a process, and etc., and this belongs here, and this is here, and just being part of all of those setting up of things, etc. So
Christmas. Well, one thing in China very popular now is trying to find places to learn more. Online courses. Fairy dust is very popular in China.
Yeah,
Sally's a very good friend of ours.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to visit Reggio with Sally.
Oh, yeah. We haven't been yet, unfortunately, and we were hoping to go this year, but then
Disrupted everything, didn't it?
Yeah. But so we want to talk about the courses you offer, because I think lots of people in China would be interested to do these courses they can do from their home and not have to go anywhere. Can you tell us a bit? I think one of them is called Cozy, and then Glow. I can't remember the other one.
So we've got Cozy, which is that Hoogie we talked about. So those cozy, comfortable play spaces. We've got Invite, which talks about those invitations and provocations to learning. So what are they? What's the difference? And, you know, how we set those up. We've got Treasure, that talks about the loose parts, because we feel that loose parts are treasure. And in Reggio Emilia, when you go to their recycle centres, they're called Ramidas, which is the Greek word for Midas, and King Midas, whatever he touched turned to gold. So that treasure. So
I did think when Miki said about when parents said, you need our garbage then. And I did think that exactly that. Another person's trash is somebody else's treasure.
Yeah. So there's one about outside. So there's also trying to think now.
Glow, which is about
oh, that's a beautiful one.
And the importance of using light. One, for the aesthetics in your setting, but two, as an open-ended material, and how light can transform so many different things. And we share some of us in Reggio in the Loris Malaguzzi Centre. In there, there's an atelier in there that's focused on light, and we filmed some of that in there too. So there is light, and there is
Real is about those authentic resources. So what are they, and how can you source them? Where can you get them from? How can you bring them into children's play? Have we done all 6?
Yeah, we're about to launch another 6 in the end of the month. But we call these our pocket-sized training. So these are only short courses, just to, you know, get a taste, a flavour of what does this mean and how is this used within a setting. Obviously, they're full of our photographs, etc. And so they're our pocket-sized courses. Obviously, we have our Facebook page, which you may or may not have seen, but there's stuff on there every day. Then there's this pocket size, but we also then have something that we call Curiosity Crib. And we called it Curiosity Crib because in America, crib means, you know, the cot, the place where a baby sleeps. But crib can also mean your house, and it can also mean somebody else's work. So we kind of felt like that word was so relevant to what we wanted to share. So we call it the new home of the curiosity approach. And basically that's a monthly subscription site. So the pocket size is just a one-off. You buy the course, you do the course, then you get a certificate. And then Curiosity Crib is a monthly subscription site where we have portals of information. We have themed them up. So we've got an autumn portal where, because we have many educators who follow us across the world, so when it's summer for us, it's not necessarily summer for them. So so what we're sharing is relevant to the season that you are currently living in. And there are things in there downloadable to share with parents, so that parents gain better understanding, as well as your staff teams, posters, all sorts of things, books that you can buy directly from Amazon, just all sorts of things that we think. There's loads of brilliant blogs from contributors who have got a similar message to us, haven't they, Steph?
Yeah, and there's also invitations to learning, so some inspiration and ideas. So yeah, so you can, if you have a child that's interested in something, you can see, and I'll save that and I'll set that up as a provocation to learning for them. So just to spark that interest for educators to get them fired up. And it's like a one-stop shop. You can access that 24/7 at any time. And you can dip in, you can dip out, and every month there's something new in there.
And then we move on to then the next level you can go to with us currently is to become an accredited setting. So it's not an accreditation that you hold personally. It's your environment, the setting, whether it's your home and you're a childminder or a home educator, or whether you're a nursery, that place that holds the accreditation as a Curiosity Approach accredited setting. And we developed a toolkit because we became aware very quickly from the Facebook page that people would just try and imitate what they were seeing, which is all good and well to start with. But like Stephanie said at the beginning, unless you understand why, unless you've pulled it apart, unless you've gone deeper, it won't last, because it's just a different way of thinking, and change is hard. And what we felt, we would find that leaders of the settings were, really inspired, and they want to become a Curiosity Approach setting and just try and just do it, but it doesn't work. The staff team need to be able to
come along,
very much part of it and develop it and take ownership of it. And that's the toolkit that we do. The accreditation involves the staff team heavily.
Also, so do you work with the school then to get that as well?
Yeah.
And that's that essentially could be offered internationally as well, like for
we're in 21 countries. We have a school in Singapore, a setting in what was the latest one? Bahrain, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Nationally, Australia, with all
New Zealand,
UAE. There, not tons of schools, but we have them in these settings now. We have many more working on towards their accreditation, but we have some that have become fully.
Do you have any in China, out of curiosity? Not yet.
No.
Hopefully.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't have Facebook in China, so it's very hard for people to find. So we'll put your website in our article.
So what would be the main platform that would be used? TikTok or where
we have TikTok, don't we? Because we're on TikTok. But yeah, WeChat's the main one, and WeChat's like it's like kind of Facebook, but only really phone. It's no one really uses a computer for so it's just
on their phone.
Yeah. This is more like Instagram mixed with WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to have it because I do
China.
Yeah, I do a lot of the posts, so I'll have to have a look, because missing spreading the word of the curiosity out there.
We've had interest from China, haven't we? An English guy came over probably a couple of years ago now, and then we spoke a few times, and then we never got any further and stuff, and now COVID has hit and stuff, so we're all stuck behind a screen doing this. But
well, I think it's what your approach is, because it's very modern. It's taking the best of the past,
and that's it.
For now, and responding to the issues we have now with children.
Yeah, what we say, we stand on the shoulders of giants. This isn't new, but what we hope to bring is an energy and a passion to reignite the love of our careers and play back into childhoods, and just reignite that passion back in everybody, because like you said, with the plastic toys, they all feel the same, smell the same, and after a while there's only so much you can do with them. So if we are getting bored putting them out every day and all, then what are the children feeling? So every day can be new, fresh and exciting for everybody, and it's so amazing to watch the children.
We were asked in a podcast that we were doing a couple of weeks ago about what actually happens to those plastic toys if you're transforming your setting, and we are also huge advocates of the United Nations 17 goals for better tomorrow, and we support global goal number 4, and our main charity that we donate to is Sparkle Malawi, and we were talking about it's it's the toys don't just have to go into landfill. They can be donated, you know, in your own countries or wherever. But there are children in third world countries that have not experienced the closed resources, which are absolutely fine for them at this point. They're not consumed by technology, and their lives are very simple and focused on the natural world. So these toys are not like we
used to be, you know.
Yeah, they're not as detrimental to children across the world in some countries than they are to our own, that are so influenced by, you know, as children in China will be too, so influenced by technology and the commercialism that they're growing up in. That is not the case for all children, and you know, so we would look to be sustainable and getting them to places like this.
Yeah, I think my teaching career started around the same time as all the Marvel movies, so I've really seen that in the early years. Even in China, every kid comes to school dressed as Captain America or Iron Man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us.
Lovely.
And then what we'll do is we can only post 30 minutes at a time, so we were going to do 2 articles, the first 30 minutes, the second 30 minutes, and then we'll send them to you if you want to see, and then you can see what the WeChat platform is.
And
I'll get
further with
I'll get on WeChat. Is it WeChat?
WeChat.
I'll get on to have a look at,
or the Google Play Store. Just WECHAT.
Okay, I'll have a look, and then I'll invite you. You could be our first
friend. Yeah, my mum and dad are on it, but the only people my mum and dad have is me and Nikki.
We'll get the Curiosity Perch on WeChat.
That's our mission.
Right. Thank you again, and I guess have a nice evening, and I guess you can have dinner soon.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. Hope you do get back to China soon. Is there any sign